Can we separate the art from the artist? The ultimate debate and conversation in the artist world. Okay, let's be honest, we've all been there scrolling through our daily feed and only to discover that yet again another artist whose work we have appreciated at some point has done something terrible. I remember one of my artist friends once told me that if you're an artist and you're a terrible person, that's normal, but if you're an artist and you're a nice person, that's the bare minimum. This made both of us laugh because of how everyone has been looking at artists with terrible personalities, normalizing their bad behavior so much that it became a stereotype for us, and also an excuse for our bad behavior. Like, hey, I'm an artist, so it's okay for me to rape women, because they're my muse, and that's how I find inspirations. But is it okay to do that? Should we continue to support the art and the artist? Let's talk about that in today's Word for Art, though. You're listening to Word for Art, though, a podcast series produced by a one-man team by Hương to discuss about art. Hi, this is Hương and welcome to my very first episode of Word for Art, though. Today we'll talk about whether we can separate the art from the artist, and I'm very excited for today's topic. Let's start with one of my favorite media theorists, Roland Barthes, who wrote a famous essay called Death of the Author. This might sound creepy, but the essay is not really about the death of the artist, but more about the death of the artistic intent. Or in more particular, it's about how the artist's intentions are not necessarily being the entirety of the work of art itself. So the logic behind the concept is fairly simple. Books are meant to be read, not written, so the ways readers interpret them are as important as the author's intention. So yes, the audience attention does matter, and in other words, our attention matters. However, Death of the Authors is an essay from decades ago, so of course separating the author and the media was way too easy in 1967. With the onset of social media, something Barthes could never have been able to account for, access to the thoughts and perspective of creators, it's so readily available, it is almost voyeuristic. I'm not trying to say that Barthes' idea is invalid, but given the way that celebrity worshipping culture is trending and how the focus on personal brand and identity is increasing, even an author that tries to let their work speak for itself can never really die. For example, Harry Potter has one of the biggest fandoms of all time, and J.K. Rowling has her fingerprint on every inch of the Potterverse. The author in this case cannot be separated from her creation, and let me explain why. From a book to a whole empire, Rowling has a level of control over the Potterverse that few living authors have over their own creations. Rowling benefits not just from the sales of her books, but from the vast amount of Potter merchandise available around every corner of the world. J.K. Rowling herself is also very active with her fans, like how she has fan meetings, book signs, and she is also on every social media platforms like Twitter. So it's fair to say that it's almost impossible to ignore the influence of J.K. Rowling to her fans. So back in 2019, when it turned out that J.K. Rowling is actually a transphobic bigot, the whole fandom collapsed. Harry Potter tattoos were erased, Harry Potter books were burned, and J.K. Rowling herself was being cancelled on every social platform. Because part of this equation is to consider who's benefiting financially from our attention. Even if ultimately we must accept that J.K. Rowling will be fine, she won't be hugely impacted by your decision to boycott her work in all its forms. She's too rich to notice or care when we little people take action. But this is more than that. It's about the future we want to create for ourselves and to create a better image of the artist world. Because Death of the Author should not be a free from jail card for all creators. However, there are cases like Pablo Picasso, who created so many great works of art and even created his own art movement called Cubism. However, Picasso's mistreatment of women and flagrant misogyny has been no secret to anyone who has studied his work. But what happened after we know that he's a terrible person? Can he woke up from the death and pay for what he had done? What do we do when we encounter his art in a book or a museum? It doesn't matter anymore because Pablo Picasso is still going to be dead and he won't be able to benefit financially from all of his work. So yes, we love the art, we hate the artist. From J.K. Rowling to Pablo Picasso, will the artist benefit financially from our support? Does the work itself remind you of the odious act? So what I believe is that we should weigh that knowledge with the work in question and make our own decisions about how and whether we let it affect our actions. Because again, the audience attention matters, our attention matters. So the question here is not really can we separate the art from the artist, but rather a question that I want you to carefully think about the answer. Should we separate the art from the artist? And thank you for listening to Where for Art Though. And don't forget to tune in on SoundCloud every week and catch you in the next one. Bye!